In this video, I'll be showing you how to effectively use our email scraping tool. If you don't currently have it downloaded, this video is not for you. You'll need to go watch our previous video on how to download and install our email scraper. But once you have that up and running, come back to this video and we will show you how to effectively use our code in order to get the most precise emails and phone numbers of your target businesses. So in order to get started, you obviously need to have this open like we set it up in the previous video. You'll need to have this toggled on right here so that way you can type in the necessary lines of code. In order to get started, we are first going to type in node space run underscore Google underscore next.js. So what we'll be doing here is just checking to see what type of Google scrolling mechanism the automated Google browser is currently using. As you can see here, the way this works is that effectively we type in node to tell the code to run a specific script that we've written for it. The two codes that we are worried about right now are Google More Results and Google Next. These two right here can be ignored. These were simply the first trial versions of our code. These are the more updated versions. So once you choose the code that you want to run, in this case we're doing run underscore Google underscore next.js, we'll click enter. From here, obviously, our testing browser should open up. And from here, we're going to stay signed out. We're going to want to click, we're wanting to click not now. That way, Google can continue to scroll. And as you can see down at the bottom, there were numbers appearing. That means that we have to use the next button. As you can see right there, how it clicks the next button for us automatically. That means we're using the correct code. And as you can see here, numbers are being outputted, which means websites and emails are being collected. In order to stop the code, all we're going to have to do is click Control-C, and the code will immediately stop. And we can go back and make adjustments. So if for any reason when it's scrolling through Google, there is just a more results button at the bottom and it doesn't have the number, the 1 through 10 and then the next button, you'll need to use node space run underscore Google underscore more results.js, because this code is specifically made for clicking on the more results button, whereas this run underscore Google underscore next is specifically made for clicking the next button on Google. If you have any confusion about that, feel free to comment below. I'll answer any of the questions you have regarding our code. So now that we've assessed that we're running the correct version of the code for our Google browser, we're now going to come to settings. And here is where we will adjust the input that our code will be typing into Google. One document that is going to be extremely helpful for us when creating the search terms that we want our code to search in Google is using our Google search operators cheat sheet. Feel free to ask for it in the comments. I'd be more than happy to share it with any of y'all. And essentially what this does is it tells you how to essentially hack Google into showing you the most specific results that you want to see. So for example, what I've done here is this in text colon auto repair means that it will only show me results that have the phrase auto repair inside the text of the website. So sometimes if you just looked up auto repair, it would sometimes show you auto dealerships because it has the word auto in it, or it would show you mower repair shops because it's got the word repair in it. So by doing the phrase auto repair and putting it in parentheses, it makes sure that Google gives us this as specific results as possible. Additionally, if we are seeing a bunch of websites show up that are not relevant to the businesses that we are trying to look for, we can put in a dash, then the word that we want to avoid. So for this example, a lot of words that were showing up was like social, so social media. If a bunch of social media sites are showing up, you can put -social, and Google will avoid any searches or websites that include the word social in it. We didn't want any auto insurance, so we put the word minus insurance, and so now no more insurance websites are showing up for us. And you can get a lot more specific as needed. One thing I do want to mention is that you typically want to have contact email in your search phrase that when you're searching, because this will allow Google to specifically look for the contact pages, and more specifically contact pages with emails on them, in order to get you as accurate data as possible for each of the businesses. Because our code is not perfect, it will click on every single website that shows up under the search terms. So be sure to review the websites that are showing up when you run your code. So in this example, we'll run it again, but in this case, we will simply look up auto repair and then minus insurance. So you can see what happens when you don't have a very specific keyword. So always, whenever you're making adjustments, click Command Save or Command S, and this will automatically save your settings. So that way when you run the code again, it will use your updated settings to run the code. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in node run underscore Google underscore next.js, click enter, and we're just going to review the type of websites that show up when we use a less specific keywords. We're obviously going to want to click on any of these buttons that show up. We want to click on Not Now because our code does not automatically click away from buttons like that. Sometimes Google will pop up with a CAPTCHA or something like that. So it's good to keep your screen on so that way you can view any times your code gets stuck. So as we can see here, it's going through and it's finding a bunch of different websites. Essentially what it's going to do is click the next button 4 times. That's what this number is right here. This controls the number of times it clicks next. As you go farther and farther in the search terms, it will get less and less specific, and you will get wilder and wilder websites that it goes to. Sometimes you can end up on like college websites and stuff like that, all things you don't want to be viewing, or you don't want your code going through. So as we can see, the code actually did a great job of being very specific when it came to finding the websites that we want. So unfortunately, that was a bad example. But sometimes if you are seeing a bunch of websites pop up that aren't relevant to the businesses you're trying to look for, it helps to go in and adjust the keywords and try out some different phrases in order to find the most specific keywords that are going to provide you the most accurate results. And obviously you can use the search operator's cheat sheet in order to do that. One thing to keep in mind, you can only get so specific. After around 15 words, Google starts to ignore the rest of the search. And so be sure not to overdo it and be too specific, because then you'll either get no results or Google will ignore some of the search terms you put in and it will be a wash and it will basically cancel out and it won't be specific at all. Additionally, in our settings, we can adjust for words we want to avoid. So for example, if all of our websites are very specific, we have all the keywords chosen that we want to, but we specifically don't want to get the email addresses for websites with a specific word in them. So for example, let's say we are looking up auto repair, and for some reason, auto repair marketing companies are showing up in our searches. One thing that we can do is we can put in the word marketing into this avoid section right here, and basically the code will ignore any websites that have that word showing up in them. So for example, if you're only looking for smaller businesses that have much simpler websites, so for example, you're looking for a local lawn care business, but you don't want to look for, say, an Angie's List or something like that that has a search bar in it, what you can do is you can actually put the word search in here, and basically Google will avoid any websites that have the word search in it, which a lot of the times websites that are for bigger companies will have a search bar in them, and that can help you avoid getting the email addresses for larger companies that may not be interested in your services. Obviously, you can get very specific when it comes to the words that you want to avoid. So if you notice a bunch of websites that have the same word that you're wanting to avoid, you can put that word inside these quotation marks. Another thing to mention, you can just add as many avoid words as you want simply by adding a comma. adding 2 quotation marks, and then putting in a certain word. So grizzly bear, for example. We want to avoid any website that says grizzly bear in it. That's what we would do, and that way it avoids all dealerships and all mention of grizzly bears. One thing to keep in mind is you will need at least one avoid keyword. If you can't even think of a word that is showing up in certain websites that you don't want to appear for, you can just type in a bunch of random letters, and this will just allow our code to run properly. Make sure you make it long enough. Make sure not to make it just 2 or 3 letters, because sometimes random letters are appearing inside the website's code. So make sure it's a string of at least 10 random characters. Going down the list, we now can type in specific locations that we want to target. This is something that it says locations, but it really is just an additional search term or an additional keyword. This basically controls the number of times that our code will run successively. So after it reaches the page limit for Richmond 4 times, it will go through and collect all the email addresses for Richmond, and then the code will reset and do the exact same thing, but search for auto repair minus insurance in Williamsburg. And so this code will then run for each one of these cities we have put in. I don't recommend doing any more than 10 cities. As you can see here, we have approximately 7. If you only want it to run once, you can simply delete all the other cities. Oh, we went too far there. You can simply delete all the other cities after the first one, making sure not to delete the brackets. You always want to make sure that whatever you put is in quotation marks, and you don't want to mess with anything outside of the quotation marks. If you want to add more cities to target, or say, for example, you can put in countries here, you can put in additional keywords. So say we want auto repair and we want to go after tires. We could put in tires right here. And just to show you how that works, we are going to run the code really quickly to show you exactly what all these changes made. So essentially what these do is this is what it gets typed in to the search bar inside Google. So what you can see here is that it's going to type in auto repair minus insurance in Richmond. And as you can see, we didn't click save. That's one thing that you need to be aware of, is that always click Command S, or you can come up here, click File, click Auto Save, and it will automatically save any edits you make. You can also just click Save. Either one works. You just need to make sure you save your settings in order for it to work. Always come here, click Not Now if anything like that appears. While the code's running, we actually don't want it to run anymore. We can click Control-C and it will immediately cancel it. That way we can go and make additional adjustments to our settings. A lot of this information is stored in instructions.txt. This essentially just kind of tells you exactly what I've been telling you through this video. One thing to mention is that node space run.js will work, but it won't work as well as these two. So I really recommend doing node space run underscore one of these examples. But underscore run.js will work as well. One thing to keep in mind, if you were doing this for an extended period of time, Google will hit you with a CAPTCHA, and if it hits you with a CAPTCHA and you don't respond within 30 seconds, the code will simply just shut off on its own, and you will be left with whatever emails it collected before being hit with the CAPTCHA. So if you ever see that it just shuts off completely randomly, a lot of times I will show you here in this example what it looks like when it just shuts off randomly. It will send you a bunch of code feedback that is completely useless for you. It doesn't mean anything, but essentially when we hit X, you can see here a bunch of this random code. This is essentially what will show up anytime the code encounters an error, either on a website or Google blocking it with CAPTCHA. This is nothing to be concerned about. It just means that your code got shut off. These numbers right here represent the number of websites that the code has collected. Once the code has gone through the limit to the number of times it's going to click the button. So for more results, it'll click the more results button 4 times. In this example, we're just going to have it click it once. We're going to click Command S. And then enter. From here, I'll just show you what it looks like when it outputs the code. That way you can easily access all the emails it finds. So it's going to scroll through this real quick. Obviously got to click not now so it can do it on its own. Manually scrolling down to the bottom like you've seen before in this video. Once it gets to the bottom, it's going to click this next button. From here, it's going to do it one more time. You can see that it's collected 21 websites that it's going to scrape. And now that it's gotten to the bottom, I'll click it one more time. We may not have saved the correct settings. One moment. We'll see if it goes through again. Okay, so it's just going to keep clicking until it reaches its page limit. Sometimes it can go a little bit over its page limit, but as you can see here, the websites it's starting to scroll through. As you can see here, it's showing AutoZone, which is not a company we care about at the moment. We were just looking for auto repair facilities. So something we could put in here is into a void is type in AutoZone, and that way it won't output any emails from there. Essentially what it's doing down here now is it's counting the number of successful websites that it's trolled through where it hasn't found this avoid keyword, which it's not going to find this ever. So it's always going to show success. If it shows failed right here, this essentially means that it found the keyword, and so it chose to ignore that website because you told it to ignore any websites with that keyword right there. We can now see these emails being outputted in the success.csv. And as you can see here, it's outputting, sometimes yours won't have colors. You can choose to change this if you do a little bit of research, but it's really not a big deal. I would not worry about the color of the output. But essentially what it's doing here is it's outputting the website. It's then outputting the email. If it found an email, sometimes the websites don't have emails that it can find. And so it will not output it. And then it will output the phone number that it found. And then it will output the name of the website page that it went to. Sometimes you'll get a bunch of random sequences of letters and numbers for the email. Sometimes you get a random sequence of numbers for the phone number because obviously the code is not perfect. It can't distinguish between 10 digits for, say, a zip code or something like that from a phone number, but most of the time it's going to be very accurate when it comes to collecting phone numbers and emails if it's able to find it on that website. So now that we have our data that we want, we can come down here and click Control C, or we can let it play out all the way and it will automatically shut off on its own. If it's not shutting off on its own, all you have to do is click Control C, cancels it out. From here, now that we're in the Success CSV, we can click File, we can click Save As. We are going to save this as Auto Repair Test. We want to save this to we want to save this to downloads. We click Save. And now in our downloads, we have a CSV that has been saved. You can open this CSV inside Excel and then upload it to anything as needed. You can upload it to a bunch of email senders, SMS senders as needed. But this is obviously a very long overview of how to use our code accurately. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help. But really hope this helps you get some traction. Hopefully you can get in front of your targeted clients using our email scraping system. We'd love to hear from you. If you're able to use this successfully and it's able to benefit your business, really would appreciate you reaching out and just letting us know that you appreciate our work. So feel free to reach out. Let us know if you need any help, and we will see you in the next video.